It's, I was thinking this morning, I was watching, after I got up, I watched Bill Moyers and Company this morning, their new program, and it was a very strong program this morning. I'm horrible keeping names in my head, but John Lofgren, he was a Republican congressman on Capitol Hill for a long time. He was the number cruncher. He was the person that was looking at all the numbers, and there was a point at which he became so alarmed at the numbers that he began to do a real investigation. It led him to write a book that's just coming out, whose title I can't say, but what he's doing is making the connection. It's about the dark government, he calls it. The dark government. That's kind of, not actually a conspiracy, but a terrible kind of intertwining of the security state that we've got that's investigating everything under the sun, and the military system, and Wall Street, and the big corporations, and that this group, in effect, is spending most of the money that should be used to pay for our schools, to support our libraries, for our common wealth, our common good. And you know, I was sitting watching it and thinking, if we sit here and just get informed, and it looks more and more kind of overwhelming, and we don't do anything, how that makes us feel. And that to be able to take our anger and our concern and our passion for our common life, our common good. I was a teacher for decades and decades, something close to 50 years, and I care about the schools and the children, and what's happening to them right now is unconscionable, and that's just one piece. I felt what it did to have less and less money every year to put into programs to help children who need special care, for example. Anyway, here I am, because this makes me at least feel energized, and my hope is that we'll be able to come together somehow as a people and stand up for the principles and the values that are so important to democracy, because I believe it's democracy which is really at stake. So I welcome you, and I feel like each of you are companions on the way. And welcome you here. Amy and I have just been facilitators for Move to Amend, and so she's going to talk to you about what we've done so far, where we are in the process.
In case she didn't say her name, she's Anna Giacopetti, and I'm Amy Hanks. We're co-facilitators of Move to Amend Sonoma County. Okay, so I know you guys all know the issue, right? Nobody here has a question about what Citizens United is. If you do, don't feel. Okay, good. I figured y'all knew. Okay, so this is an initiative that calls for something that sounds, the first time you hear it, a tiny bit cheesy. It calls for a Democracy Day, okay? Calls for an annual Democracy Day in the city, in the county of Petaluma. Where am I? In the county of Sonoma. It would require the Board of Supervisors to hold a public hearing on that day, and they have to take public comment on how corporate personhood is affecting our lives, how unregulated campaign finance is affecting our lives, and that has to go on every year until an amendment is passed that would say and the amendment to the Constitution we're working on is, it says, has two basic parts. Corporations are not people. The money they spend is not free speech. Campaign finance can be regulated. You can hold your question for a minute, okay? That's the main thrust of move to amend, is a constitutional amendment that says those two things. Corporations are not people, money is not free speech, okay? I want to talk about where our initiative came from for a second, just so you have a little background on it. We didn't make this up. This came from a small town in Ohio outside of Cleveland called Brecksville. About 13,000 people, and as far as I know, they were the first people to put together this idea of an annual democracy day to advocate for a constitutional amendment. They did their work, gathered all their signatures, and went to the registrar of voters and asked to have it put on the ballot, and the mayor of Brecksville went to court to try to stop it from being on the ballot. And his argument was, this is not a city issue, it should not be on the city ballot. The case went all the way to the Ohio Supreme Court. The Ohio Supreme Court said, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, you can sit down now, the citizens have done their work, this is going on the ballot. And, yes, hooray. And it did indeed pass. Brecksville, Ohio is a fairly conservative place, but theirs passed by 51 to 49. And this is typical of these types of initiatives, citizens initiatives, no matter whether they are going on in a Democrat-dominated area or Republican-dominated area, they always pass. That's the record so far. So far there have been about 50 citizens initiatives that have passed, and then there have been 375 to I don't even know how many other resolutions by county councils, city councils, etc. In support of an amendment. Okay, all that, there's a huge list on the Move to Amend National website if you ever want to see it. Okay? So, what we're doing here is really important, and one of the most important things is that you're here, and one of the second most important things is that we have to grow fast. So we need you to enlist as many friends and neighbors as you can in this movement. We have to gather 25,000 signatures by May 12th, okay? It's a lot of signatures. We think we can do it. We know there's a lot of interest in this issue. We started collecting February 1st. We had projected that in our first 2 weeks we needed to collect 750 signatures. We collected 1,180.
All right.
Okay, so that's pretty good. But the way that our projections run are every week of this campaign, we have to increase the number of signatures we gather by about 250. So we need to explode all over this county, okay? And you're a big part of helping that happen, but we still need more people, so talk to your friends. I think that's all I have to say. Yeah, questions?
Can you clarify what you said at the outset about, it was very unclear to me about so what about this day of, this annual day, and you mentioned Petaluma, but actually the county seat is in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, sorry,
Can
I'm
you
still trying to
be
wake
a little
up.
more
I'm still trying to
specific
wake up.
about
Yes.
that?
Okay, so forget Petaluma, that's where I just came from.
Okay.
The annual Democracy Day would be in Sonoma County, okay? And the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors would be responsible for putting on a public hearing that day. Does that help? Okay.
And so now is the petition for that, or is it petition for the amendment?
It's for both.
Okay.
The petition says, we want a constitutional amendment that says corporations are not people and money is not free speech, and we want an annual Democracy Day where the supervisors have to hold this public hearing, and we get to go and make our voices heard about the issue.
Can I just say a little bit more about that? Sure. The reason that we have a Democracy Day is to do an initiative in Sonoma County, you have to have an actionable item. The idea of a Democracy Day started in Ohio. It's an actionable item that brings people out and gets people involved in the democracy, so that's an actionable item that we chose for this county as well. After every Democracy Day, the Board of Supervisors will send a letter to our state and federal elected representatives saying the citizens of Sonoma County voted in favor of an amendment to the U.S. Constitution stating corporations and other artificial entities can't have constitutional rights and money is not speech. So that's why.
Well, I
why
see
the two
that, I
came
mean, is there
together.
any way to kind of condense that down to get, to get a real clear, succinct, easy to understand message for people that don't have a good background on this?
We'll talk about talking points a little bit later and how to like really boil it down and grab people, yeah.
I would guess that what we mainly want is a resolution that says that the county supports an amendment to the Constitution. We want that in every county across the country, and that puts pressure on the government to amend the Constitution. But this added bit about a yearly day serves two functions. One is it's a way of getting it on the ballot because you have to have an actionable item. Another is we're unlikely to get the amendment to the Constitution within the next year. It may take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. We want to keep struggling until we get it. And it gives us an opportunity in the county each year to remind people, to get people out and doing things and active. And it gives the county, it forces the county to be contacting legislature and reminding them every year. So it's not just one shot and then we're done, and if we don't succeed, everybody forgets it.
Okay, and just a little bit more context, there are 4 counties, 4 move to amend affiliates in California that are trying to qualify for the ballot this year. Sonoma County is one, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, and Humboldt counties are also trying to put this on their ballots. In 2012, Mendocino County was the first county to get this approved by their populace. And so this year, if all 4 counties succeed, we'll have 10% of California counties on board with this.
Why isn't it a state initiative?
Move to Amend tends to work locally at the grassroots and build up. We don't have enough bandwidth to do state yet. But a lot of this is education. One of the reasons Move to Amend likes to do local grassroots things is to educate the population. Now, a lot of you are already familiar with the issue. When I go down and am gathering signatures in Petaluma, for example, even in front of the bookstore, people don't know what Citizens United is. They don't know what's going on at all. So there are a lot of people still like that.
But ultimately, doesn't it have to be a state amendment to the Constitution?
Ultimately, there is a process, yes, for getting a constitutional amendment. It involves a certain percentage of the states, yes. Right now, our Congress and most of our state legislators are so bought by the big interests that, in fact, the We the People amendment that Move to Amend has written has already been introduced into the U.S. Congress. It has practically no support, okay? It's not gonna get any support unless we show that there's a groundswell of support for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Shall we go to Daniel? Or
Yeah,
what are
no,
we
we're
doing
going
next?
to,
Breaking.
just so we have a picture, how many of you here are from Santa Rosa? Okay, and then Petaluma, just getting a sense. West County, Sebastopol and West County. And Healdsburg. We've got Healdsburg here.
Yes.
We've got a good Healdsburg contingent.
It's closed.
Right. Where are you?
Cloverdale.
Cloverdale. Wonderful.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you.
We're most concerned about getting the communities that are outlying a bit. And we have Sonoma here too?
No, I was just asking if anybody was.
Okay.
Any areas that we missed?
Yeah, Uncut County Road, Park. Penn
Oh,
Road.
great, great.
But you're petitioning in Petaluma, right?
I only go where you tell me.
I'm moving to recruit Sonoma. I have a dear friend, she's a mom of 2, so
So we'd like to, I think the best way, Amy, what do you think, given this size? I will meet with the Santa Rosa people, and we're going to give you people who don't have petitions and all of the information. We're going to sign you all up and get organized, sort of ready all of the materials and questions about ourselves as a group, and then we'll switch to Daniel after we all have
Do a quick training.
we'll do the training.
Could
So,
you talk a little more about the annual Democracy Day? I mean, it sounds like an educational thing right off the top, but how long of a period, or, you know, where it be held, you know, kind of
The Board of Supervisors get to pick where it's held. Are you asking how long the
Yeah.
hearing would last?
right, what,
Don't know that yet. You know, I assume an hour or two, something like that,
yeah, sure.
you know, yeah. It depends on
And
how
the-
many of us show up to make comments.
yeah, and it's also possible to make this a day of an event.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this would be incumbent on us too, to really make the Democracy Day something eventful for the whole community.
Max?
Yeah, is this a public hearing at an official meeting of the Board of Supervisors?
No,
Or
it'd be
something separately?
Separate from. Yeah, separate from, it's its own entity. Yes.
One other element regarding the educational process, which the Democracy Day is intended to fulfill, is between then and now, working with those members of Congress who represent us, Huffman, Thompson, and our two senators. That should be an important ingredient of whatever we do, because they're going to eventually have to vote. And if they begin to get on board, which I think Huffman is likely to do off the top of my head, having worked with him, that would be important for those of us who he represents. And of course, most of Santa Rosa is represented by Thompson.
Right.
But we should not forget about those who are already in office
Yes.
as allies in building up the momentum.
Yes, that's a good point. And there has been a group of Move to Amend people connected throughout Huffman's district, trying to work with him on this. He hasn't taken a stand yet. But if Sonoma County goes for this, we'll probably spur Marin County for the next election cycle. And if we have Marin and Sonoma counties breathing on Huffman, you know, how much choice is he gonna have?
I just wanted to reinforce what you were saying. There's a kind of a sinking feeling about thinking, oh my God, we're talking about incremental drips in the bucket and this is going to take years and so on. But that's how we got where we are now.
That's true.
That is a Republican organizing tactic that started back at the local school board level and everything, and has been going on for decades. And right now we have a population who's been trained by Fox News. And so we have to be very patient and very persistent.
I want to just address what you said. On this Democracy Day, the initiative requires the Board of Supervisors to designate the day and to have it in a public space. 3 months before the designated day, they need to invite our federal and state elected representatives. So they will, there's a good, there's a possibility they'll be here, they will at least know about it. And then one supervisor needs to testify at the hearing. And then after each Democracy Day, they will inform them of our vote in support, of Sonoma County's vote in support of an election. So we are involving them as much as we can.
Next.
Has there been any outreach to the current members of the Board of Supervisors?
Not yet. Yes, some. We're working on a lot of different things, and
Yes.
in addition, I'll make this an advertisement. In addition to help gathering signatures, we also need more people to step up and take kind of leadership roles on the steering committee for this ballot initiative, like to spearhead things like that, to spearhead media a little bit more for us. So if that's an interest of yours, please absolutely let us know.
Yes, we did approach the Board of Supervisors as an organization several years ago. And they were willing at that time to support Bernie Sanders, I think, resolution, which dealt with corporate personhood, but wanted to exempt nonprofits and labor unions. So it was a less, this really has to be I would say a much more complete response that only human beings have constitutional rights. You can't say corporations don't and then exempt labor unions or so on.
The Sanders Amendment, for those
Right.
of you who, some people might know about this, so you might end up in a conversation about this sometimes. The Sanders Amendment leaves a loophole for nonprofit organizations to continue donating money to elections. The organization Citizens United that started this whole thing is a nonprofit organization, okay? It also would allow, anybody can set up a nonprofit, including
Right.
a foreign corporation, and start dumping money into elections. So that's just way too big a loophole to really be feasible. Otherwise, generally speaking, I love Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Daniel.
I'm the president of my local labor union. I used to be the executive director of a local sustainability nonprofit. I can tell you, labor gets outspent 20-1, and the NGO community gets outspent about 300-1 in our political process. We would be far more powerful and effective if we could shut down all non-human expenditures. So, that's why I'm here.
And this is a question I get on the streets a lot is, well, where's labor on this? I'm in a union. And I
Undecided.
I quote that statistic and I tell them that our consultant for this campaign is the president of a union. And give them some.
And my union is not taking a stand on this, nor has the Labor Council. No, I work for SEIU,
Okay.
I'm president of UAW.
Yeah.
I just want to say that someone I know through work turns out to be the chairman of the Political Education Committee for SEIU for Sonoma County, and she has taken the endorsement letter for this initiative and is moving it forward in SEIU. And then also ESC, which is another local union, they've taken the endorsement letter and they're moving it through the process. And in Salt Lake City, which passed an initiative like this, AFL-CIO supported it. So it's like David and Goliath. It's exactly what you said. There's no.
And we're talking to the Labor Council on Wednesday. So.
Yeah.
Do you have a local ASME?
A local what?
ASME, I know that there's a California.
There's a few local chapters. They're not big, but.
Okay, so great discussions, great questions, great comments. Let's break into groups by area.
Right.
So where do you want?
Santa Rosa, over in here?
Jim,
I'm right here.
Right here.
where do you want to field the people?
Good, we'll just turn and then I can get everybody's names and we'll
Can I suggest
pass
right
out.
around here? 'Cause it seems
And
like
maybe two groups.
So Healdsburg, that area.
North County.
North County.
Where's West County?
West County. Is Amy, West County?
Are you North County? No, Jim is gonna do North County.
I'm West.
Who's West, who's doing West?
West County with Aaron.
I didn't even bring my.
Miller?
So that's just.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Okay. Great. Shema response.
Amy,
I was in 8.
the sign-up sheets are shared.
Are you West County?
I know he, somebody.
Arrange the chairs.
Because otherwise.
Except we're waiting for Cloverdale's on its way.
Well, you